Brooks is coming in hot, joining the trail running super shoe market with the all new, rebranded, renamed Cascadia Elite. Is this a shoe worthy of carrying the legendary Cascadia name into a new era? Before we jump in, check out my last Cascadia Elite video focused on what is perhaps a new paradigm in trail running super shoe uppers and specifically sizing. I'm running here today in a fresh out of the box US 10.0. In that video, I talk about how Brooks actually sent me a US 10.5 by mistake. I tried it on, of course, and I actually found that it did fit really, really well. The Cascadia Elite has a matrix upper with those black Kevlar fibers weaved in there. It is a setup that I've always been a huge fan of. So go back and check out that video where I discuss perhaps how uppers with this secure of a fit, this secure of a inherent material in them, not just a matrix, a few other super shoe models there, how that could potentially allow you to size up more comfortably for longer distances and ultras. I've got a couple of solid test runs already in those larger US 10.5s, so I am going to split this review into two parts. I'll talk about some specs straight away, mainly focused on fit and sizing. I'll see if some of my initial thoughts are either confirmed or rejected now that I'm running in that smaller, or I would say normal for me, Brooks US 10. It's got an even 10 ounces here in the size US 10, just a couple of grams lighter than that US 10.5. I measured the stack exactly the same for both sizes that I have. 39 at the heel, so 39-33 measured. They do list a spec of 40-34, 6 mil drop there. And even 10 ounces is right on target for a trail super shoe like this. I've got my Hoka Tecton X3 weighed in at 9.7 ounces in the same US 10. I'm gonna talk about that shoe probably a little bit more throughout this review, and of course going forward when we get into comparisons, because there are many similarities between that one and the Cascadia Elite. As far as other comparable super shoes, that 10 ounces is right in line with the new Adidas Speed Ultra 2. It's a ½ ounce heavier than the Kipsummit Race and a few tenths of an ounce lighter than the ACG Ultrafly from Nike. Something of note is that I did remeasure the heel stack recently of the Tecton X3, and I only got 34 at the heel after a few years of running in that shoe. It's originally spec'd at 40-35, and having that shoe on foot side by side with this one definitely feels lower at this point. I'm not sure how that would feel if I did have a fresh pair. The spec drop is also 1 mil lower, and I definitely noticed that. It feels actually even more than a 1 mil difference. Feel quite a bit lower in the heel, again, at this point in my Tecton X3. I will at some point do the, of course, most obvious A/B test, Cascadia Elite versus Tecton X3, so I won't talk about that comparison too much more throughout the course of this review. Midsole foam here is Brooks top of the line DNA Gold. That is a 100% PEBA foam. There is a carbon fiber plate baked in there. It is a U-shaped plate, kind of split with a big wide opening down the middle of the shoe running underneath the forefoot and up front by the toes. That is a very interesting plate configuration that I have not seen in a trail running shoe before. Typically you'll get kind of an X-shaped fork up front, even maybe parallel plates with the Tecton and new ACG Ultrafly, or one uniform single plate, full length, or sometimes maybe 3/4 length or such. Having a full U up front with those kind of wings really running along the edges of the foot. I can't recall. Let me know down in the comments if there has been a shoe before that has utilized that type of design. How does that feel on the run? Well, I'd say it's kind of interesting. I would say that I can vaguely detect the outline of that plate along the medial and lateral edges of my foot. Not so much that I notice the plate or feel any firmness along the edges of the shoe. It's just that it feels relatively a bit softer under the middle of the shoe, under the ball of the foot, in fact. Typically with any type of carbon fiber plate, you'll notice to varying degrees the stiffness or firmness of the plate depending on the construction of the foam, durometer of the foam, how it is sandwiched in there. But with this shoe, I find that it feels like a little bit more ground feel under the ball of the foot. You don't have that plate kind of flattening the midsole out, flattening out the ground contact. Just a hint more of kind of contouring, really, again, under the center with, I guess, those railed kind of plate edges, keeping structure and, I guess, rigidity along the sides, I would say. Once I get out on the run next time in those US 10.5s, I think I'll dig a little bit more into the feel of the plate underfoot and also what type of propulsive effect I think I may get or not get from it. So I am in my traditional Brooks US 10 sizing here. One thing I'll note, length is somewhat okay. I've got about half a thumbs, maybe a little bit more, but I wanted to wear the same socks that I wore in the previous run, especially actually yesterday I ran in the 10.5, so I wanted to run in the same thickness socks. This is the Sidus Run Anatomic Comfort, has a padded ball of the foot and heel. I like this sock to fill up some volume, give me a good fit in different shoes, but I would probably want to go with maybe a thinner sock in this sizing here. My toe's about here. Now that I'm kind of breaking it in a little bit, length feels somewhat okay. I talked about this in that previous video. It just seems like a little bit more tapered than typical Brooks shoes. I've actually run in all versions of the Catamount, most recently the Catamount 4, and it just feels like a broader toe box, a little bit wider up at the front there. This one visually doesn't look crazy tapered, but something about it, it's just a touch more pulled in over here. On the run today, I'm about an hour in, 6 miles down, all kind of uphill, and I could feel the front inner tip of my big toe along the inside edge of the shoe here. It's nothing crazy. Again, I do have a little extra padding in my sock here today and want to run in a thinner sock in this sizing. But again, I have run in Brooks 10s before with no problem at all. So here I detect that edge of my toe hitting there, not so much on the pinky side. Again, I did keep this a little bit loose. I always love the Matrix upper because it doesn't stretch out. These Kevlar fibers really hold the foot well without deforming the fit of the upper, so I do have it a little bit loose to kind of mitigate the little bit tightness up here. I also can feel a little bit of my toes being like squeezed together on my run. Typically when I size up with my ultra sizing, I want to get that sizing so it doesn't feel like the toes are pressed together at all times. Like I don't want to have that feeling throughout the course of a long race or even a long training run. I want to feel like at least they have room to spread out a little in this toe box. They just feel a little bit kind of pushed together here. That is a difference that you may notice if you go with your typical Brooks sizing here. One other note that I'll point out, when I do have my 10.5s that I previously run in, the ankle gaiter has a looser fit here. That is going to be an issue if you do end up having to size up due to the toe box. If you have a lower volume, say upper foot or ankle area, I got a little bit of bunching in my 10.5s that I don't have here in the US 10. The sizing of this portion of the upper seems to be US 10 correct, but again, if you have to adjust for the toe box being maybe a little pinched or narrow up front, then you may get looseness maybe in certain other areas. I didn't feel any looseness or lack of foothold throughout the middle of the shoe or anywhere really important. It was just like a little bit of bunching here. And again, I talked about this in the other video. I don't think this is a 100% sealed collar here. It is very good, and again, better here in the smaller US 10 for me, but it is not 100% like the Tecton X3, for example. Quick look at this upper here. You've got, again, full matrix here. There is no interior liner, just a single layer mesh all around. You have a knit element of this booty construction down the middle and around the ankle here. Full breathability, drainability, as with any matrix upper. All around the foot, no problem. And it is pretty tight weave here, as with all matrix uppers, so you're not going to get that dust and debris filtering its way in. Also with this almost 100% sealed ankle collar here, that's going to filter a lot out. Perhaps the best element I like in this shoe, typically with a booty design, certainly that's an area that I will talk about with the Tecton X3 comparison, heel hold. They went with a full ring of padding along the interior there, and that is just perfect. A lot of times with these booty type uppers, or even just minimal uppers in general, they'll go with those little bolsters on the side, on the medial, lateral side, something you saw to ill effect in the Adidas Speed Ultra 1, something they have rectified for the most part in Speed Ultra 2. Here they went even farther. In the Speed Ultra 2, they went a little light around the back of the heel there. Here it's a full ring of padding that you would see in a traditional upper. That really locks the heel into this shoe as you would in a traditional heel cup, not with this booty type design. Typically you would struggle with heel hold in this type of upper, on top of the fact that it is a carbon fiber plated shoe. Really great heel design. They just nailed it with this one. I love it. Let's hit the flex here. Get more flex up front. It seems to flex quite easy up there, and that's perhaps because the plate is running up here and it's running here and not quite in the middle. Let's check that contour I was talking about. You could see how you could kind of compress it in the middle of the shoe there. That is an area where I was noticing the ground feel, noticing more of a softer feel under the ball of the foot. Again, it is quite a high stack. I've got this at 39, so 39, 33. You've got 33 under here, and that's 100% P-buff, feeling quite soft and also quite adaptable on the ground. You don't have that feel of a plate there where you're kind of running through the plate before you feel the ground. This just, I think, allows the shoe to contour really well. When you get the shoe on tilt, you could see how it would kind of contour around something, or one edge or the other could kind of flex independently. Even with parallel plates, certainly the ACG Ultrafly has a very tight parallel plate separation there, very thin separation between the plates, and it feels extremely stiff. You don't get any of this kind of flex in that shoe at all. Tecton X3 or X2 as well, they have a kind of narrower carbon fiber plates, bigger gap down the middle. It allows better flex, and it does allow the shoe to contour a little bit more, but you still feel a little bit of that under the middle of the shoe, at least compared to this one. I think that shoe is really good in that you generally don't feel that carbon plate compared to other plated super shoes. This one, I think, is just a little bit of a step further, where there is actually no plate down the center of the foot. So you really don't feel it at all because it's not there. A couple of other nice features with this upper here. You have a large center bolster running up the center of the foot. This is just perfect for lacing up the shoes. Eliminates any lace bite at all, where all the laces are crossing there. It's right on top of that bolster running down the middle, and it goes quite a ways down. A lot of times shoes will pad the upper section of the tongue, and they'll kind of like miss this row here, or maybe even this one, and it's kind of a bummer. Why wouldn't they just go all the way? Here you've got it all the way down here, which is perfect. Nice serrated laces here, no need for double knotting at all, and then you have this handy kind of lace loop there to top it off. Really nice. You got the gillies down here, eyelets over here. Again, I don't notice too much of a difference between having the straight eyelets running up here, why they have the gillies here. I think the big ticket item is the matrix material itself. I don't really find much of a difference with the eyelet setup here. The matrix material does the job. So as a bit of a wrap up on today's run, I do think my thoughts on the sizing are confirmed. Based on how these 10s feel out here today, I think it's really a combination of both the length and that narrowness that I pointed out at the front of the toe box. It's not only the length or not only the narrowness. It's just, I believe, a smidge shorter than a typical 10 and also a smidge tighter up front than your typical 10. So in conjunction, those two elements are adding up to about a half size difference. But if you have a wider foot or a need or preference for higher volume, you're gonna have to take my advice into consideration, at least if you're ordering these shoes for a Target event or something. Allow yourself enough time to try out the sizing, feel them out, and possibly allow yourself time for an exchange if it's not feeling right. Remember, this very excellent matrix material itself is going to give you a little bit more variability to size up and not lose foot security, something that I discussed at length in that ultra sizing comparison video. So I'm going to rock on down here, finish off the rest of this run while I transport you to the future for the rest of the review. I'm not sure if it's going to be tomorrow or the next day, but nevertheless, I will dig into ride, outsole, traction, ground platform, and whatever else popped into my mind out on the run. All right, we're back. Part 2. Got my larger US 10.5 on foot here. I can tell straight out of the gate, this is a better fit. This is the correct size for me in the Cascadia Elite. I think this is the case here where the old adage does apply when trying on shoes. If it feels good on foot when you put it on, that's probably the best pick for you. But this is not the first time I've had this shoe on foot. I do have about 25 or 30 miles in this shoe already. The larger one, that is, US 10.5. After today's run, probably be in the range of, say, 40-ish. The toe box in this larger size here just feels right. I don't feel any of that small squeeze at the front of the toe box. My toes are just that little bit further back in the shoe, and I think that helps a lot with the upper shape up front. In terms of shoe sizing, and specifically the cases where you want to size up in a shoe, I often focus on space in front of the toes, maybe squeezing around the edges of the outer toes, big toe and pinky toe, in the sides of a toe box. But another aspect is also where the arch contour or profile hits under the middle of your foot. This shoe doesn't really have a big one, nothing obtrusive under there, but there is a little bit of contour, I'd say, towards the middle. And that small area of contour also will sit a little further back if you do decide to size up. And for me, it seems to be closer to the middle of my arch, or I don't know, something about it just seems to be feeling better under my foot as opposed to perhaps being a little further up, closer to the inside ball of my foot. Now, it is hard to give kind of blanket advice on that type of feel inside the shoe, but that does go back to the adage I mentioned earlier. If it feels good, if it feels right, it probably will be right on the run. So the final verdict is, yes, I will stick with this larger US 10.5 primarily in the shoe. Thank you to Brooks, by the way, for sending me that wrong size, which is now the correct size, and for letting me keep the smaller one. I will continue to run in that one with thinner socks. Obviously, that'll probably be fun to explore how that feels for perhaps maybe faster running. Tighten them down real good, thinner sock, more feel. Let's make a quick stop up here so I can talk about these first little tidbits of the first segment of part 2. Larger US 10.5 here gives me a full thumbs width up front, and I certainly find that is necessary for longer distance ultras, 100 milers. I was talking about the arch contour on the way over here. It's kind of light, but it is a little bit something over here. In no way problematic at all. But when I had the 10, perhaps the foot is going to be a little bit further forward, and perhaps it's just like in the wrong area under the foot. So it just seems to be, again, right under the middle right here, and that's just suiting at least my foot shape under the foot, the arch area there. Again, as I said, that is something you will have to feel out once you get the shoes on foot for yourself. Another quick note, a little bit of bunching here at the larger size. This was a little bit tighter all around in the US 10.5. So again, as I mentioned earlier, this collar is a little bit more snug in the 10. I wish I would have the sizing of that collar on this shoe, at least for my foot. It's a bit of a mismatch in terms of the sizing and the width of this collar. But again, if you have like a just bigger ankle than me, that won't even be a thing for you. Foothold, foot security is really good as I'm heading down this descent here. Had a little uneven spots earlier, not so much right here, but really feel strapped to the bottom of this shoe. Matrix upper really holds the foot well, and as I have talked about, plenty of room for adjustment with the foothold and the Matrix material. Again, I would advise or lean into going with a size that is spacious enough to give you the room to tension the shoe down where you need it, and I felt great. No forward foot sliding at all. Talk about the climbing as I'm heading up here. It is just a overall smooth riding, and I would say smooth flexing feel underfoot. I talked about the lack of carbon fiber plate coverage under the middle of the ball of the foot. You have it running along the sides instead. That really gives you good ground feel under the middle of the shoe. I could feel the ground more so under the ball of my foot than I would with a stiffer carbon plate in between there. Also climbing, same thing, just a little more feel under the ball of the foot and probably less restriction. The thing with carbon fiber plates, it's kind of hard to get them to flex when you're climbing. That's one of the detriments of the design, at least in some people's opinion. The very wide split nature of this plate here also seems to disperse that stiffness when you are climbing and flexing that front part of the shoe. Rolling back down again here, there's a bit of a up and down rolling route today. Early in my testing of the shoe, I kind of noticed the plate on the sides of the shoe. It felt like I could almost feel it along the edges inside of my foot, more so than the outside. But as the shoe is kind of, I would say, broken in a bit, maybe molded to my foot strike, I really don't feel that at all. It has that Tecton X3 kind of feel where the plate is there, but there's not a sense of it, a sense of the firmness under the shoe anywhere. Even the rear of the shoe, the horseshoe design, we've heard about certain shoes kind of doing different things with the plate in the backside of the shoe, either omitting it like the Sylan 2 or making a circular cutout, as is the case with the Kipsummit race. Here it's again extending along the outer edge, leaving the center of the heel open as far as not having carbon under the heel. That definitely gives you a little bit more leeway to stomp on the heel on certain descents. You don't feel that harshness under the heel. They have more like a regular foam crash pad there to lean into or lean back into. So in a certain sense, the Cascadia Elite plate is acting more like a stability cage, I would say. It's also, I would imagine, providing a bit of stability as you don't have that carbon in the center to kind of act as a lever point when you're tipping, say, side to side. You can't really point at the plate itself and say, that's the reason why I tipped over on a rock or something like that, because it's just not there under the middle of the foot. But at the same time, it is a full-length plate running lengthwise along the sides of the foot, so you do get a little bit of that propulsive effect. I just don't think that is the kind of primary factor of it, or that's not the thing with the shoe, as is probably the case with other shoes. Certainly, for example, the ACG Ultrafly. About to check on some stability down this way over here. Almost carried a little too much speed there coming off those rocks. I've almost blown off that section before. I know it's coming. Hit some water there. It's not an ortholite insole here, luckily. It is some type of super critical type foam, which is a nice feature here. That type of non-absorptive insole plus the matrix upper, not going to be problems with either drainability or breathability here. As I flatten out here for a segment, I'll talk about the smoothness. A lot of it comes down to the drop, measured at 39, 33 here. 6 mil drop seems to be the drop that works for the majority of trail runners. And in the case of the Cascadia Elite, it does feel like a true 6 mil drop. If I had to guess it without knowing, I would definitely say 5 to 6 here. Doesn't feel like a low 4, and certainly with the balanced feel underfoot, nothing close to an 8 mil drop or 10 even. That is one aspect I will pay attention to over time though, because the Tecton X3, also listed at 5 mil drop, does seem to have flattened out, at least, I mean, well, both in terms of total stack measured and the drop. Heel feels a little bit lower in that shoe after a couple of years of running it. Certainly feels closer to say a 4 mil. Or even lower, in fact. The 6 mil drop underfoot here really does seem to stand up, so to speak. That certainly gives you a well-rounded feel when you're climbing, holds you up under the heel a little bit, and also it's enough to kind of smash into on descents, again, without that carbon fiber under the middle of the heel. Again, no problems with foothold and security as I'm coming down here. A little bit of steeper one here. If I don't have good foothold, or wouldn't have good foothold in the shoe, it's definitely one where I'd be sliding forward, but don't get any of that here. Really nice. Also quite stable coming down there. As stable as you are probably going to get in this type of, you know, wide platform, high stack shoe. I've got platform listed at 116.83.99. Again, very close to the Tecton X3. That kind of platform certainly doesn't make it the most nimble of shoes, but again, you have to judge every shoe within its class. And we're talking about a high stack, max cushion, carbon plated ultra racer here. So within that class, yeah, it is a quite stable shoe underfoot relative to some models in that class. Long, steady climb here to round out the rest of this run. I'll go through my final thoughts, but before that, quick mention on the outsole. You've got Vibram Mega Grip Elite here with the traction lugs, 4 mil depth. The Elite is a bit of an upgrade here. Gives you a bit of a tackier compound than regular Mega Grip. I believe also at fractionally lower weight, which is always good. Certainly not a lug pattern designed for mud, but it's probably more like an all-around pattern. Versatile for running fast, moderate terrain. You saw me popping in and out of a couple small crossings there, hitting some rocks in and out. I haven't noticed any traction issues at all over the course of my running in both of these sizes. So Vibram Mega Grip Elite, no problems there. I've got a roundup of super shoe comparisons back at the van, so I want to frame my final thoughts here more in a comparative sense. I will take a quick look when I'm done here, but I think this kind of shoe requires a more in-depth comparison video. Actually, I first have to note, this has been a really great run today. The legs have not been feeling fresh at all. I'm 2 days off of a kind of hard workout, outdoors too, not just on the treadmill, so a little beat up. Had a kind of dinner with friends last night, had one beer. Also, The daylight savings time thing has really been messing with me, having inconsistent sleep and just overall feeling tired in the morning and stuff. Still getting used to that time change. But as far as getting out for a nice solid loop out on trail, this has been the best one in, I would say, a week or so. I mean, it's after daylight savings time, almost a week by now, and just feeling great. I mean, can't discount it being the shoes for sure. Feeling smooth, efficient on the run, the climbing, descending, just everything feeling kind of easy today. So where does the Cascadia Elite land in the current trail super shoe marketplace? I'm just gonna go ahead and place it right here. I feel like it's a cross between the Tecton X3 and the Cloudultra Pro. I've talked at length about the similar split sort of carbon fiber plate setup here between this one and the Tecton X3. I've also talked about the good amount of flex, or perhaps better amount of flex in this shoe, which I find comparable to the nylon fiberglass plate found in the On shoe. You've heard me call the Cloudultra Pro the super shoe for the people, just due to its relatively cushy nature, the fact that you really don't feel that plate at all underfoot, and just the overall comfort of the shoe. Wide fit, in fact, also of the upper. The X3, in my opinion, is also another highly versatile shoe. Again, you don't feel the plate as much, but I would say definitely more than the On shoe, and a little bit more than this one here. Especially under the ball of the foot, you can tend to notice not harshness from the plate, but more stiffness than you feel with this Brooks shoe here. Matrix uppers, ankle gaiters, similar platforms, all the numbers very close. Tecton shoe is a little bit lighter, but again, that shoe feels lower to the ground than me, at least at this point, than this shoe. So we'll probably have to do a long-term follow-up with this one here to see if that 100% PIBA here squishes down in the same way as my Tecton seem to have. But the one area that the Brooks Cascadia Elite, in my opinion, has the clear advantage is the upper. Go back and check out my sizing video where I have more close-ups. Again, do consider sizing up in this model. But aside from the sizing, I do think the foothold and security is superior in the shoe. Absolutely love the Matrix upper. The material itself goes without saying for me. Whoops, made a wrong turn. I gotta go back around. I think Brooks has really nailed it with this upper design here. Really dialed in what you need to do, what any shoe needs to do when you're sitting on top of this type of energetic plated stack. What they've done with that padding on the inside of the heel in conjunction with the booty upper matrix material, I think that is a key factor for me. The heel thing, such a big issue when you come to high stack shoes, and especially stiffer plated models. Getting in that full padded U shape on the interior, that really does it for me. Perhaps the U shape is a bit of a theme with the shoe. The heel padding, the plate, both of them I find working really well. So I hope that kind of slotting in there between the On shoe and the Tecton shoe gives you a good idea as to where the shoe is positioned. Certainly in the realm of the highest tier of trail super shoes that you can buy today. All three shoes are highly efficient, but there's little nuances to each of them. Let's take a closer look, shall we? All right, we're back. While we're at it, take a look at my last video. Did a bit of a product showcase. One brand was called Wild Ride, based out of Sun Valley, Idaho. Women-led, women-powered. Check them out if you get a chance. Nice technical gear and apparel. Also active wear, comfort wear, lounge wear, everything you would need. Get some gifts there for the special lady in your life. Or if you're watching this and you are a woman, get some stuff for yourself. Also wearing my Gorewear tech hoodie here. Perfect conditions for that, as you saw on the run. Don't miss out on the final days of Gorewear. Got my discount code below. Talked about this shoe having enough space at my US 10.5. Certainly I'd want to have this sizing if I want to have the setup I talked about in that previous video, in Gingy liner socks with a thin ultralight liner on top, reduced chafing, blisters, etc. I wouldn't be able to fit that setup in the Brooks US 10 Cascadia Elite. 10.5 here, just perfect fit for me here. Let's get to these shoes here. Obviously visually This is the comparison here. Plates running down the center of the shoe. Bit of a difference here. You've got the U-shaped plate running along here. Just feel like there's more feel under the middle of the shoe. You're gonna like this if you don't like the plated feel directly under the ball of the foot. If carbon fiber plated shoes feel a little bit stiff for you, this is a really good option because you have that kind of effect. It's not as aggressive, I would say. I'm not quite sure. I feel like this may be a faster shoe. Certainly at this point, as it's packed out, it feels a little quicker. Again, the plates are more in the middle of the foot. Here you get part of that, but you also get more ground feel and probably a little bit more comfort directed under the center of the shoe here. So that is a difference here. Some of you may prefer that or not. The Cloudultra Pro, no carbon fiber plate here. You got that nylon fiberglass plate in this one, and the foam here, Helion HF, just has a softer feel underfoot than perhaps both of these shoes. I feel like this is just more, it kind of feels like just a cushioned training shoe, but it is very efficient and also light, similarly to this shoe. So this one I feel is more appealing to a lot of people that don't want maybe an aggressive riding or just overall feeling shoe. This kind of feels more like a regular shoe, but it performs like a super shoe. So that's kind of like where I see these two. This may be faster, maybe stiffer plated, maybe slightly more aggressive, although I still think this is a comfortable shoe. This one's sitting in the middle, and then you have this one here being kind of more comfortable. So this is the lineup as I see it in my mind. Got the ACG Ultrafly here. You know, if this is on the stiffer end, this one's gonna be like over here somewhere. Highly stiff. I'm having trouble. Somebody sent me a video on Instagram where they were flexing their shoe and they were just easily bending it. Like, I don't know how much force they were putting. I probably could, but I don't like to really fold my shoes in half. I don't see that as being good for the plate, but I may have to do it in this shoe because this is too much for me. This level of carbon plated stiffness I don't particularly like. And going back to the drop that I liked in this shoe, feeling like a true 6, nice and comfortable, this one feels like a true or even more than an 8. This feels like you're really up there. This is a different kind of shoe. Again, I don't slot this in the same range because this is just such a unique profile underfoot, such a unique feeling shoe. I really like this shoe. It's really comfortable, but you know, you could see with the platforms of, say, let's put these two versus this one, and then these two. This one's a little bit, again, more of like a middle ground, more like a normal kind of platform here, whereas this one's pretty wild. This would be a good shoe for some faster, more forward-leaning, aggressive type of runners or running styles, but I can't really place it in the same kind of realm as this one. This is another interesting shoe. I did have a question, do I like this one or this one? I was reluctant. I haven't answered. It's on my Substack and it's still kind of hanging there. Maybe by the time I post this video, I will answer. I've been reluctant to answer because I get such a wow factor with this shoe. The foam feels so energetic and you get more plate action. I really like the feel of it, but as I've kind of put more miles in this one, I think the comfort and efficiency has really started to come out and really grown on me. I might look at them a little bit differently, or perhaps I just have to run in them a little bit more, or perhaps race in one or the other or both of these shoes to really make a call. So I love both of these shoes. I haven't answered yet, maybe I will. I think you have the wow factor. I've talked about it before. The wow factor with this shoe that I don't, you know, you get a like fun, efficient factor with these three models, but this one just like pops. This one feels amazing, but I'm not quite sure if it has the distance range of these though. The plate feels a little stiffer underfoot, a little more active than all of these three shoes. So that may make it a little bit different. Maybe like a middle distance ultra race, 50 mile, 100K if you want to call that middle distance. Somebody also asked me about the Sylan 2. Check out my kind of full review on that one. Gonna do like roundups between all these, but this is a different shoe than probably all of these. This is a more technical mountain shoe. It does have the wishbone shaped carbon fiber plate not extending to the heel, so the plate kind of comes up to here, but it is a firmer ride for sure. I think maybe close to this one, but the rest of these shoes all feel more comfortable underfoot than this one. This is really for like aggressive technical mountain running where you want to have more firm feel underfoot, but they threw the plate in there this time, flattened out the rocker. Check out my full video for all the details. This is more of like a technically oriented shoe, whereas these are more kind of runnable, moderate. You could definitely get technical in all of these shoes depending on your ability level, but this is for like pure technical levels of running. you wouldn't want to have this in a kind of runnable scenario where you would choose probably any one of these shoes. Like this would probably be as far as like flat, runnable, and this is by design, of course. Arc'teryx is not going to argue with me on this one. On a flat, runnable type of course, this would probably be in last place compared to these, but that's not saying anything bad about this shoe. I think that's about a roundup. I may have to do like a full video really digging in, or just go one by one, A, B, one after another. Let me know what you want to see. If there's something missing here, just let me know down in the comments. Thank you for tuning in to Humble Running. I look forward to racing in this shoe for sure, and maybe a couple other of these shoes this coming season. Maybe I'll let you pick my race shoe. We'll see. I don't know. Some of them, maybe the feel will just be so good I'll have to stick with what I want to run in. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time out on the trails.